Hey friends, welcome back. So I thought that I would show you how I take an area that I have not applied details with and show you how I layer on the graphite and then form rock texture and some of the other wrinkles and everything that you see here. And the creature itself, let me zoom out just a little bit so you can see the whole thing. So there's the feet. Okay, now let's zoom back in. It was purposefully left unfinished just so I can show you how I layer. So first things first, this is a Faber-Castell 4B pencil. If you're drawing along with me, if you're doodling, if you got a blank sketchbook right now, just grab your pencils, start drawing some lines down. I have plenty of videos where I show you how to scribble at first, and I also have videos about how to layer on shading like I'm doing right now. So what I'm doing is I'm holding the pencil at the very end and I'm just gradually putting some values down in one single direction. And I'm just going to keep going. Now what I have to do next is I'm going to turn my sketchbook. I don't know if this, yeah, there we go. Yeah, when I have a bigger sketchbook like this, instead of that little one that I use for my thumbnail videos, I have to be careful. My desk has a little shelf on it, and the top of the sketchbook hits it all the time. So if you have a nice little area for some coating, that's what you need to put the details on top of. You see, when you start sketching and you want to jump right into details, one of the worst things to do is to not have a nice layer of values on underneath the details first. The reason is because if you jump into details right away, the paper, like the color of it, the texture, shows up in between the details and there's no value there. So what that does is it takes away the realism because it won't allow you to put shading on top of anything. But it'll also look outlined and it'll look cartoony. If you're not going for the cartoony look and you want to go for realism, it will then force you to try and shade around the details, and you don't want to do that. You want to build it up from the ground up. It's not a ground, but you want to build it up from the bottom and then work your way. This is kind of a more chill lesson. I know this is more advanced than what's normally on my channel, but I also have a feeling I don't really get to show you guys this much stuff. This was actually an abandoned video game project. I don't know what came of it. When I was drawing this guy, I thought that it was going to be powder printed or 3D printed. Project fell through and nothing ever happened, and then I think the business went under. So there's no company anymore, so this isn't even under NDA. So here I am, finishing our big hulking beast up. Just to kind of give you a little bit of detail about it. The right shoulder has a big horn coming out of it, and the left shoulder has a horn, but it was lost in battle. So I try to make it look like it was cut or hit. Maybe it was caught on something. I don't know. But you can see the layering of details starting to come through here, and I'm pressing very lightly, putting in some wrinkles. It's kind of like putting in tree bark at the same time. This is what's great about layering details. Wrinkles, dirt, cement, bark, even leaves, all of that texturing can easily be obtainable if you just lay that foundation down first. That foundation down first. That sounds really weird to say. There we go. If ever I shade in tiny little areas like this, I like doing small controlled ovals. I've gone over this too in my other videos. The ovals, it almost acts like a safety net because the circular motion that you're drawing with, you go back over the previous mark that you put so that you can fill in the gaps. It's really nice. But there are plenty of areas in here where I can put in more details. I hinted at it right here, like on the legs. If I push this forward, you can see here that there's this rock texture. I'm pretty happy with it, but I can fill it up even more too. So let me just show you how I achieve this rock texture. The bubble shapes and the hard almost like dried lava shapes. What I did was, instead of drawing an outline where the shape is, I let the value create its own shape. Right like this. So if I wanted to fill this gap in right here, tiny little ovals, and I'll be sure to put the lumps of the rock texture in side by side, like this. Now you can see here, this effect, if I wanted a deeper crevice within the rock texture, I just pick and choose tiny little crevices and areas where I just push harder, and then I release the pressure, so that way it blends nicely. And there we have a tiny little, I guess a little hole, if you want to call it that. All right, so now let's zoom in so you can actually see what I'm doing. Now that we have a little bit of a close-up, you can see the very light, faint lines that I'm using for the wrinkles. These wrinkles are flowing around this bony structure. So as a creature designer, one of the things that I have to pay attention to the most is the underlying structure, or the skeletal structure of the creature, even before all this cool detail goes on. For example, the skull, the large, I guess you can call them hands, the shoulders, the big bony structure here, all of that needs to be thought out before I put in wrinkles. And then once I'm happy with that, and the coating of graphite has been placed across all of the skin, then I can start putting in wrinkles lightly, very lightly. Now you can see these lines emerging as I go back and forth, applying darker and darker and darker lines until I get something that's showing up. Once that shows up, I'm going to take my pencil and I'm going to pick and choose tiny little gaps, and I'm going to very gently put in some darker lines and then some lighter lines. So if you're wondering why some of these wrinkles have black in it and others don't, the parts that are really dark are parts that are folding, and the light is definitely not getting in between the skin. That's why that's there. But you have to be careful with that. You don't want to get too dark. Otherwise it'll have too much contrast, and then you're going to lose the subtleness the rest of the area, and you don't want to do that. Another really cool trick is if you did put some darks in there, okay, if you're using a 6B, of even a 5B. I'm using a 4B, and you can get pretty dark, but anything higher than this is basically charcoal almost, or black Prismacolor. Take your pencil, see those wrinkles that I put in there? I'm going to lightly put some oval formations over top of the wrinkles, and then I'm going to release the pressure as I move down the neck. What that does is it helps with the gradation. There's a nice gradient happening now. You see, I'm old school. Like, this isn't Photoshop. This is just paper, pencil, and me hoping that I don't screw this up. That's basically what's happening. And I know this might be a little bit advanced for some of you, but if you're a complete beginner and you're looking at this and you're going, there is no way I'm going to be able to do this, stop that mentality, okay? Grab your sketchbooks right now. Start scribbling. Watch my scribbling videos. I teach you guys how to build up values, how to find shapes, how to determine what creatures you want to put more details on and turn them into a portfolio project. I go over all that. All those scribbles pay off, and they get you to this spot. So let's see where we are now. The one thing that I could do is I could add a nice core shadow underneath this broken, I'm not going to call it a tusk. It might be a tusk, whatever. So let's do a very faint core shadow running directly under this bony structure. Now, you have to be very careful when you do this, because you don't want to ruin the details that you already put down. So that was very lightly drawn. I'm going to go in direction number 2. I'm not going to press harder than I previously did. All I'm going to do is just add graphite that's going to fill some gaps in for what I just drew. I'm going to turn my sketchbook like this. See if I can turn it that way. I got to move it in an odd way. Right about there. And I'm going to hit this in direction number 3. Like this. Okay. Now, here's something that you got to pay attention to. Right here where the core shadow ends, and it meets the lighter tone that I had put down, this needs to be blended. Don't use a blending stick for this, because you're going to ruin the texture of it. Instead, lightly go in a different direction and keep layering up that graphite until it flows into the lighter part of the page. And go up and down, up and down. You see how I'm not stopping with the back and forth strokes, but my hand is going up and down. It's kind of like a piston. So I'm just going like this. I'm going up and down and up. That's what my hand looks like off the screen. And I can do that in several locations. Okay, it's also important to keep a very sharp pencil. Dull pencils make dull drawings. I was taught that in college, and I have never forgotten that. So I teach all my students that. Okay, so here's something that has happened. Let me adjust my page. All right. This is so much fun because this is the side of drawing that most people don't get to see me do, just because this was a 4-hour drawing, okay? And I'm not filming a 4-hour video unless you really want to see it, or else I do a lot of time lapse, okay? I want to show everything in real time. But anyway, this is the back and forth layering that I have to do to my drawings until I get what I want, until it looks okay. So you can see here that that core shadow that I put with all the new workings of value, I kind of lost some of that detail. So instead of freaking out and grabbing an eraser, I'm going to work with this. It's not even a happy accident. I'm still happy, and I didn't make an accident. So I'm just going to put in some darker wrinkles. That's the other thing. Putting in the darker wrinkles. Well, how do I know to put darker wrinkles in? It's all about plays of value. All right, so let me explain that. If you're putting in a shadow somewhere, if you're putting in a wrinkle like I am, you see how dark those tiny little wrinkles are that I'm moving across here? I know to make them darker because it's lighter on either side of it. So that way there's a nice contrast. So I know that the wrinkles can be darker. Now, they can be the same tone. Don't get me wrong. There's tons of instances in art where you can draw and have everything be so monochromatic that there's no harsh shadows or anything. Yes, totally. But for the style that I'm keeping in my sketch right now, I'm going to make these darker because those same type of wrinkles show up everywhere else. So I don't want to change anything. All right. Now what I'm doing is I'm just working my way up around that bony structure. You can see new shapes emerging, new wrinkles. And it's so much fun when this happens. Yes, it's an indicator that you were successful in your passes for the graphite, but it's really starting to pop out in 3D. That's what you want. And I have some volumes in here that I didn't know that I was capable of producing on this particular creature. Like, for example, by me putting in these shadows, it looks like there's a groove right here and a groove right here, so maybe there's a muscle or a tendon that runs up through the shoulder joint. It's not even the shoulder, this is the shoulder. Yeah, pretty fun. And technically, this, right at the top of this deltoid, I can probably be in shadow too. Right like that. I hope you guys are enjoying this. This is I want to do more advanced lessons like this. I'm just trying to hit each level of sketching, you know, because I know that everybody that watches my channel, you're not all advanced in art. Some of you are just starting out, and I don't want this to be overwhelming for you. I do this type of stuff, like bringing in these more finished drawings, because I want to show you what you're capable of making. And I want to show you what's possible if you just take your time and layer these sketches up. You don't have to finish a drawing the first time you start it. Okay, there are times when I open a sketchbook and I'll have a drawing like this, but I'll close it and then not pick it up for a week and then work on it for 3 straight days hardcore and then stop it and then pick it up again in a month. It's just the way we work as artists. It's crazy, I know. And sometimes you're in the zone and you reach that flow state and man, nothing can stop you from drawing. It's pretty crazy. All right, and I could spend another 2 hours on this head, but I don't want to. But I hope you enjoyed tonight's lesson. Please comment below and tell me if you're working on something that's very detailed and you're afraid of messing it up. Also, let me know if you need my help, if you need my guidance in the early stages of sketching. Okay, I run a mentorship where I focus on the fundamentals: line weight, line quality, cubes, cones, cylinders, and spheres, perspective, observation. We go over all of it. And I use my years of experience with both being a concept artist and also teaching foundations in university, which I miss heavily. Teaching in person was just so much fun. I use that knowledge that I've gained. And so let me know. You can email me at bobbyrebholz@gmail.com. Check the links in the description below for our Creature Design Workshop Discord, which is not fully just creatures. All right, we welcome everyone. All right, this was a lot of fun. I'm probably going to come back to this sketch for like 3 or 4 more videos. Maybe this entire week, I don't know. Here I am just putting in these details. All right, folks, that's how I would do wrinkles, and that's how I layer. I'll see you next time. Peace.